The Pistons are the basketball champions of the world.
Detroit, it's time. It's playoff time, Detroit. Let's go to work.
Shout out Detroit. I got to buff up, you know what I'm saying? Detroit, I'm all the way in. Detroit Pistons, I'm all the way in. Let's do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Buffs On Podcast. We are the best POD in the 313. We're talking about one of the hottest teams in basketball right now, and it's the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are currently on a 7-game win streak for the first time in over a decade. So we got a lot of good news to talk about, and we're just going to go over the last few games, talk about some of the good things that we've seen, some things that we think are contributing to this, and we're going to throw some statistics at you about how the Pistons have been performing during this historic hot streak. Valley, you're first on my screen. What is something that has jumped out to you during this historic win streak?
Well, I don't really know where to start, but I want to start by acknowledging that this is a historic win streak. The 6-game win streak, excuse me, the 6-game win streak.
Seven.
Well, yeah, it's 7 now, but this at the time we made it 6, it was the first time since 2014-15 we'd won 6 games in a row. For me and Connie, that's about the second or third season we've been watching the Pistons, which really just says a lot for how special this team really is. And that streak is currently at 7 games. That's the first time we've done that since December of 2008. I was happy to be in the building, watching Jalen Duren put up the number 7. The energy was amazing. I mean, for a Monday night, this thing was as close to sold out as you can get. And every single person there just has a certain feeling of excitement because the Pistons are must-watch basketball right now. We're getting a lot of media attention, and for all the right reasons. Our superstar is a superstar. Kate has been fantastic, but so many places to start. I'm gonna just pick a random one because I feel like we've got an endless list to go over, and I'm gonna start with Asar Thompson. I think Asar has geared up and found another level. Again, I think there's so many places you could go with this, but Asar Thompson to me has been a difference maker. His minutes are slowly bumping up. Talking about getting him 27, 28 minutes a night, getting closer to that 30 mark. I think it has to be noted how great we've been with him in terms of getting his minutes back after that blood clot, which obviously is so serious. I think we've done a really good job of getting him back into the groove of things. But even just looking at just straight box scores, steals plus blocks, stocks together, he just loads him up. I saw he's the first Piston ever. I think it's at 16 games in a row now with at least one steal. Very fitting that he has that, and just his freak athleticism, I think, just provides us with such another interesting angle of basketball. The way he's almost completely cut out the 3-point shot, at least in recent times, I think is super interesting because he has to find a way to still be useful on the offensive side of things. And him taking away the 3-point shot, I think, has only made him more useful. You know, teams are giving him that. They were giving him that earlier in the season. He'd hit 1 out of 4 maybe. Still saw those air balls, but now he's doing what he can do best, and that's get to the rim, and that's cut. I love the way he's pushing the ball. I think in general as a team, a theme of pushing the ball as soon as we get it has been huge for us because we have the capability to run so much. Asar's passing game. I'm sure we'll talk about Duran's passing game. Asar's passing game is a huge part of this reason why we're so successful. I mean that I don't know how to describe that jam he had against the Clippers off the inbounds pass, a fadeaway left-handed dunk. I'm not really sure what that was over Derek Jones Jr., who's an athlete himself. Kind of give you some opportunity here. Sorry, night in night out picks up the best player. Um, Absolutely shuts him down. Harden going 5 for 22. I know Trae Young had a good night, but I think he did a great job on him as well. Asar Thompson to me has been one of the biggest reasons the Pistons are where they are right now.
I mean, no doubt. I start watching, and this is going to sound bad. I know it doesn't really compare to any of the comparisons Valley throws out when he calls Cade Cunningham LeBron James, but Asar Thompson, at least on the defensive end, looks oddly Kawhi-like to me when he hoops. And I mean that in just there was times prime Kawhi, there would be a guy dribbling up the court or holding the ball or just standing there, and Kawhi would just take the ball from them like they're a child. and then go down the other direction. And I think Asar does a lot of that same stuff, where there'll just be a ball handler trying to dribble up the court, and Asar will walk up to him, stick his hand in there, pick the ball out, and go sprint in the other direction for a dunk or something. His We talked mid-season awards. We had Stu as the number one defender, and no one really made the Asar point. And I think he was still definitely loading up, getting into game shape, getting into himself again. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard pressed. He probably won't be all defense just because did miss some time. But I'd be hard pressed to find 5 defenders in the NBA better than Asar Thompson. Uh, and Valley said it, his passing. There was that game, the one game that Cade missed where the Pistons won against the Sixers, and he had a lot of point guard responsibilities. And I mean, he doesn't have point guard responsibilities on this team, but he does have the occasional ball handle, pick and roll, where he often does make a very nice play. And I've absolutely just loved what I've been seeing from him and how he somehow found out how to be an effective player even when he doesn't shoot a single three-pointer and he's on the court with another guy that doesn't shoot a single three-pointer. Has become really good at just finding his spots, knowing where to be, and then obviously getting out and running at every opportunity and doing he is so fast. He is so insanely fast. He is so much faster than everybody else on the court when he plays. It almost looks unreal. There was one possession last game where Pistons committed to a turnover, and he just sprints back, and he was not the first guy out on the break. Like, there was Clippers in front of him, but he was the first guy to the other side, and it just completely shut down the fast break. They had to reset. They had to come out just because he beat them all down. And it didn't even look that hard for him. I think the Asar twins could have been or the Thompson twins could have been the sickest track and field athletes of all time, but thankfully they decided to play basketball. I mean, you can go Asar, you can go really anybody. Like, this
It's
is
just
something that I've been waiting for so long, but just like all the role players are playing well. There's nobody stinking it up, and that's insane to say for a Pistons team where like half the roster usually stinks it up. There's nobody stinking it up. There's nobody that when they come on the court, I'm like, God damn it, we need them off again. It has just been like consistent good play from everybody up and down the roster, and it's so awesome to watch.
Honey, can you guys hear me okay?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm in the
garage band.
garage, so we're ad-libbing the pot here. But do you remember last year you made a comparison with furniture and the roster? Do you recall that?
Vaguely,
Yeah.
vaguely.
You said that this roster is like having a bunch of furniture, but all the
All
furniture
the
is
furniture is
covered
covered in
in diarrhea.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I don't think we have that problem anymore.
No, bro. They
Um,
had the we had the cleaner come in. They cleaned Monty Williams up off all the furniture. JV Bickerstaff, professional cleaning crew.
oh yeah, this is the best housekeeping crew in the business. We got to hire them for a lot of things. But it's just so nice to see this team clicking. The vibes are different. And I can't go much further on this pod without saying, like, hey, don't touch me. I'm sizzling. Like, that line lives, like, rent free in my head, I think, for the
I'm
rest of the time.
sizzling.
I'm
He said it.
sizzling.
He said it with such
Enthusiasm?
enthusiasm, but also I don't want to say like sassiness.
Yeah, yeah. The
sizzling.
way he said it has been killing me.
And
Uh,
like compare that to the end of like that's a post game talk from this season. Last season we had Cade Cunningham dropping 40 points and staring into the abyss after the Pistons threw another game. I mean, yeah, that we we can talk the other guys. Cade Cunningham is just fully arrived at this point. I'm even seeing it from known Pistons haters like Bill Simmons. He ranked him as the 9th best player in the NBA. A little low in my opinion, but you know, we're getting there. He has been so extremely good
yep.
at everything. And I think the main thing that I'm seeing right now is like beginning of the season, we saw these like really good plays, and then he'd have like a stretch where he just drops 4 straight turnovers. He doesn't do that anymore. Like he'll get a turnover, sure, but like his turnovers numbers are down and everything else is up. Um,
And which is
I mean,
impressive for a guy who last I checked was the third highest used guy in the league.
yeah, I mean, I can let you go off a little bit more on it now that you're in the
No,
garage.
I got
A
nothing
little
else
bit,
to add. I love
but
hearing you guys go off because, I mean, Cade Cunningham has been great, like you said. I love everything that he's doing on the court, and he's hitting these shots. Like I feel like when you want to get to that next level of being an athlete, of being a star in this league, you got to hit tough shots. And Cade Cunningham is starting to hit those tough shots. You know, we don't win that game in Atlanta if Cade Cunningham doesn't score, what was it, 29 points in the first half? Like, that was
33.
absolutely phenomenal. Like he's hitting shots that you need to hit if not only you want to be a guy in this league, but if you want to be a guy that obviously carries your team. And another thing that stuck out to me is that not half court, halftime buzzer beater um, against the Clippers too. Like that step back from the corner. Like you got to hit those shots if you want to be a guy in this league. And he's starting to hit those shots.
Yeah,
And that we've been talking about since he came into the league. He's going to need that 3-pointer if he wants to be something. That 3-pointer is here.
and where did that come from?
I
Before
really
the
think
All-Star break, he wasn't stroking it like that, and then he comes back and he's hitting fucking logo three-pointers against the
Mhm.
Hawks. Like, that has never been in the bag. That has never, ever been in the bag. What
I
happened?
I really think the 3-point contest had something to do with it. Like, I don't know if it's a mental thing or not, because it's not like he's shining in the 3-point contest, but like just the overall tendencies to be like, yeah, Dyson Daniels is an elite defender. He's up on me all day. I
And
can
not only this,
screen.
Dyson Daniels is getting credited for being a potential all defensive first team player, and Cade Cunningham cooked him almost every time down the floor.
Absolutely, and Dyson Daniels is this is the greatest differential between 1 and 2 in total steals, of all time. Dyson Daniels is a special player, but there's a more special player, and that's Cade Cunningham. Because when he is in his grill like that, and literally the first opportunity he gets is his left heel's on the logo, the Atlanta Hawks logo. This is the first time he has breathing room, and he goes, "All right, I'm just gonna pull it," and he knocks it down, and at the same time mixes in like all that in between game, but the 3-point shot. Um, we've said it, and I think Gabe and I were really saying this a lot earlier in the season. Like we want to see those attempts per game double digits from outside the arc. He's still not quite there. Last I checked, I think he's at like 6.7, but still a good number. And evidently, just off the eye test, his 3-point shot it looks a lot better this year. And Amit, like you said, like he's hitting shots that role players, normal starters, good players don't make. He's making shots. He's taking shots.
He doesn't make those. He had never in his
Never
career
has.
up until this past week has
And,
made those shots.
and I don't think up until, the last few months we've been able to say that Cade has reached a new level, but Cade has been continuing to reach a new level. I was calling him a superstar, late in 2024. I don't think it's crazy to say it now. I think it's pretty easy to say it now that I think Cade Cunningham is a superstar in this league. I think there's a long list of people you can say that Cade is better than, especially when it comes to that point guard position. I think this is a guy that will be an MVP conversation next year. I think he deserves, no dunks always say it. They're not going to get the MVP, but he deserves a seat at the table. If there's 5 seats, like one of those seats is reserved for C. Cunningham. He might not win it this year, but next year legitimately could be a different story, especially when you consider Ivy coming back. But the shots he's making, the shots he's taking, he's such a overall leader of this team. Um, yeah, he takes some credit saying he's sizzling. Much deserved after the greatest first half I've ever seen by a Detroit Piston. But talk about 29 points. Talk about 10 assists at halftime. The defensive focus on him is ridiculous, and he's so ready to just be a great teammate and do anything it takes to win basketball games. And I think that's the motto up and down this roster every single person has. The objective for this day is to win the basketball game, and they're going to do it whatever it takes. And they know their role as to what to do, and they know Cade is the head of it. The 3-point shot, I mean, like you said, that three to close out the half against the Clippers, like that's not something you'd see in the past from him. He'd probably try to get to the hole, maybe a little mid-range jump shot, but even talking about that mid-range jump shot, like his bag is infinite, it seems like, but you're seeing like some things that he really likes to get to. You talk about his 3-point shot when he's going right to left, coming off a screen. He loves to gather into a dribble pull up. Talking from the mid range, he loves to get to the baseline, lower that left shoulder, knock down a little 15-foot baseline jump shot. It's fantastic. And he was just in a flow state in that first half against Atlanta. That Euro step to close out the half, he had a couple of Euro steps, just really beautiful. I think this is hands down. Sorry, Blake Griffin. This is the greatest Detroit Piston that we have witnessed in our time of watching, which is going on 1.5 decades now. And the fact is, he's only 23 years old. And his teammates love him because he makes everyone else around him better. Connie, you said I do the LeBron James comparison after you just said Asar kind of defends like Kawhi. Well, this is why I say it. Like, he's not LeBron, no, but like he makes his teammates so much better. He elevates them to a different level, all while elevating himself to a different level nonstop. Um, I'm glad he was
Do
an
you
all-star. This is the first of at least 10 all-stars in a row. Cade's a special player. He always has been, and I'm just so happy that it's able to show now. And I have a question for you guys I want to bring up in a bit. I just want to throw it out right now. And like I don't know how much of a question it is, but like I was really thinking about this last night, and like every single one of us last year had much higher expectations than what our win tally was, obviously. But it's almost like we were made to look out like we were crazy thinking that this team, like we swear they're not as bad as they are. And it's just amazing that that's evident, and they're not as bad as they are. Obviously, so many other factors leading to that, but there was just never a way that roster was, like Kate said, we're not 2-26 bad. Like they were never that bad, and I'm just so happy that now where we are, we have the Pistons one again. We got a G-Max song for us. Like things couldn't be better for us right now.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Go ahead, Connie.
that, that roster did kind of stink, and that's, but also that 2 and 28. That's part of the reason that Monty Williams, when I die, I'll send him a piece of like my last like fart or something in the air. I hate Monty Williams so much, but I mean, do you guys realize how impossible it's going to be for teams to guard Cade if he actually if this is how he hits threes? Like, you realize he's just going to be an unguardable player. It's not. It
Yeah,
just won't be possible.
because he's
No.
such a fantastic threat of getting to the basket.
Yeah,
Like he can get
if
anywhere.
that's what I'm saying. If he adds this, he will have every spot on the floor under control, under his wing, as well as setting up all his teammates in outstanding fashion.
And to like kind of just like cap off the K talk and like the recognition of I've seen 3 times now, I think genuine, not even the last 24 hours, James Harden giving Cade all the flowers. KD yet again on a podcast giving him his flowers. And Grant Hill I saw as well, was paying homage to Cade. So I think just that national media recognition, the respect from the greats is really there, and that just speaks for itself. What we think of him, it speaks for itself. This guy is going to lead us to our first playoff berth, and I'm really hoping our first playoff win since 2008.
Yeah, and of course the Pistons 1 game out of the 4 seed. We could talk Cade Cunningham all day. We can circle back to him a little bit later if we have time. But I want to talk about another guy on this team that's been making a big difference lately, and that's a guy that, like as we mentioned before, when Cade Cunningham was being trapped, this man absolutely shined. Jalen Duren's passing, we knew it was good, but it's been absolutely phenomenal as of late. And he's been helping take some of the pressure off of this team when we are playing 4-on-3, when teams are like, all right, this Cade dude, he's kind of a problem. Let's just trap him. And Jalen Duren's absolutely stepped up. Valley, I started with you last time when we talked about Cade. So, Connie, I start with you this time. What do you like that you've been seeing from Jalen Duren?
Oh my God, absolutely everything. This is what I've been asking for. I've been asking for this guy has the ability to be this short role playmaker and do so much more if he just kind of like controls his turnovers and gets a little bit better. And I'm gonna run you through some Jalen Duren splits. Month one, October, uh, he was a minus 11.6. Month two, November, minus 5.2. Month three, December, minus 12.3. Since then, he was a positive 1.8 in January. Good. He has been a plus 20.8 in the month of February through 10 games. He's averaging 14 points, 12 boards, and 4 assists a game. I need to apologize. Earlier in the season, I was saying that we should ship him out with a first round pick to get Jakob Poeltl. I need to eat crow. I was wrong. I was incorrect. Jalen Duren is a monster and has been a monster not only on the offensive side of things, but I feel like he's stopped sucking on defense. Anybody else saying that? He's actually
100%.
being a positive contribution, contesting shots and doing things. He has just really, really, really come into his own and is JB Bickerstaff talked about in the beginning of the season, putting guys like having people letting them have freedom within like constraints, like putting them these are the situations you're gonna have. You have freedom within these points. And he has flourished now within these points. He's not doing crazy stuff. He'll take the ball up every once in a while.
Errant lob every now and then, but we'll live with
Errant
that.
lob every now and then. But what he's doing is he's setting screens, he's rolling, he's short rolling, and when he catches it and there's a guy in front of him, he makes the pass out because somebody's open. And if there's not a guy in front of him, he can turn is like fully horizontal, slamming the ball through the hoop. Like on that one alley oop where Cade kind of like tripped over himself a little bit, just tossed up some random hook shot up to Jalen Duren, and he was just like Superman. I'm glad that he's doing that, and we can start up the Dwight Howard comparisons again, like we were doing in his rookie season.
Rasheed Wallace even gave it a Chris Webber comparison today, not today, yesterday as well.
He does kind of look like C Webb, old man C Webb out there.
So Jalen Duren's been absolutely phenomenal. Valley, your thoughts on Duren?
Yeah, much like Asar, maybe even more like Asar in the playmaking sense. He's just been incredible, like 4 or 5 assists, handful of assists every single night. And they're really, really nice assists. I love that backdoor. He's had to
Cade?
lead a couple of times now, both versus Atlanta and the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Really love that. I love the way he's just handing the ball off and screening. I think it's been excellent. I too need to apologize to Jalen Duren. I think I already have, but I think he deserves another one. Now, I wasn't saying trade him. I was saying maybe consider bringing him off the bench. But Jalen Duren, I was very critical of, and his defense has just been. He just seems so much more engaged on the defensive side of things, and not just the defensive side of things. Getting rebounds, how about 19 of them against the Clippers the other day. I think Duren has just been massive, and like I said, when you go up and down this roster, every single player has a role that they play that they contribute to this team to winning. And Jalen Duren knows his role, and his role is to dunk the basketball. Cool stat: the Pistons lead the league in dunks per game as a team. Duren and Asar are a significant reason as to why. Loki K too. And
God, they are the entire reason why.
yeah, that's true. But it's just back to it's not back to what his rookie year was, but it's kind of erased a lot of what last year was, and it kind of
It's
shown that there was a
it's
lot of
better
beauty.
than his rookie year.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Throughout that second year, there was a lot of beauty in the struggle. When we talk about all those losses, and even some losses we had this year, I was talking about that with our buddy Mike on the way to that game. Those really difficult losses we had this year, I think, have really shaped our identity and focus this year. Even smaller things like we were talking about Ron Holland because we were so close to Milwaukee, missing those free throws against the Bucks. Like that's a significant moment in his career that for the long term is realistically for the better, just because the work you put in after and how much you learn throughout these experiences. So I just really think that's for the whole team, but Duren as well. I think that like these growing pains were significantly worth it. I think talking about Cade, we could have really touched on that too. But now Duren's just back to that rookie year times two, because when he's around the brim, like you already know what's happening. He wants to have a monster dunk. And I'm gonna put out a crazy comparison, and I'm not saying Duren is this guy because Duren's way better. But when the Pistons had Christian Wood and he was breaking out for the first time and he played over Andre Drummond, he would dunk literally everything.
Everything.
And like Duran has the same intent right now. It's a little different, and Duran's obviously a much better player than Christian Wood. Um, but Jalen Duran has just been the big man this team needs, the big man this team needs for the future. A walking double double. Like I'd put your house down on a double double for Jalen Duran. He's protecting the hoop, and the playmaking is there. The way he's bringing the ball up the court, that's something we've been saying for years now with JD. And he's been really good at it. Yeah, it still leads to, like you said, I'm at a few lobs that end up in the 10th row, but like it's fine. Like it's fine right now. Like these, like he was having games with 5, 6 turnovers when they were like half of them were illegal screens and half of them were just missed time passes or something. But now it's much more controlled on the turnover side of things, which is another big reason why we're winning games, I think. But like I said, with everybody up and down this roster, you can go and point and do a list 100 things that they do great, and you can list all these things that they do that they play their role, and Jalen Duren fits right into that category. He's like like so many of these people, a huge catalyst as to why we're at 7 in a row, and him putting up the 5 and the 2, symbolizing seven. Obviously, it's just like man, it just he's really in this. This team is so in this, and it was great to see.
It is. It is. A couple things, other things I want to touch on before we run too long today. I know you guys want to touch on Dennis Schroeder. We'll get to him in a minute. But first, I want to talk about the guy that has probably been at the helm of this, that he's not getting probably all the credit he deserves, but he's certainly getting a good sum of it. Cade Cunningham saying that he thinks that his coach should be coach of the year. Connie, you mentioned it earlier how you will leave your last fart for Monty Williams, but let's talk about the guy that's going to replace that did replace Monty Williams and JB Bickerstaff. I said when we did our midseason awards that he is the MVP of the season. I'm sticking with that because without JB Bickerstaff's impact, I don't think we see the growth and the improvement that we have seen to this point. Not only as the roster as a whole, but individual players like Jalen Duren, like Cade Cunningham, of course, other coaches, Fred Vinson helping guys like Ron Holland with his shot, Vitaly Potapenko probably helping Jalen Duren with his post defense as well. But Valley, I kick it over to you. Your thoughts on JB Bickerstaff on how he's helped impact this team so far this season?
Yeah, I don't. I guess I could see a world where he doesn't win Coach of the Year, but if he's not top two, top three, and Coach of the Year, I
The
don't really.
Thunder are going to steal the slate with all awards this year, unfortunately for the Pistons.
Yeah, it's Detroit's time. Uh, but what he's done to this team, I think, has been better than we all could have imagined. Yeah, win totals, whatever. It would have been amazing if we'd won 32 games in the entire year. Here we are with so many games left, and we're on 32 wins. But honestly, like wins aside, what he's done here in terms of building a culture, um, the the aspect of building like actually building the culture, I think to me has been so accelerated. But it's perfectly fine that it's been accelerated. I think it's just mind-boggling to me how you can go from such an extreme lack of identity to such a strong identity and team focus and team build. And you look around the league, like how many teams can you really say have an established identity? And I think we're one of those handful of teams now.
What is the Pistons' identity to
I
you?
think it's grit and grind. Like I think it's what we've been always talking about. Like, oh, we want to pay homage to the bad boys, the going to work group, and I think you see that. I think you see everybody plays their role, and you play hard as hell. And I mean, I'm sorry, were we second in the overall net rating and defense throughout the 7 game win streak? And I think that speaks for it because you don't just go from being this bad at defense to being this good at defense. I think our theme is Detroit basketball. I think that's who we are. When they asked Isaiah Stewart what just happened, and he said, "You just witnessed Detroit basketball." That's Detroit basketball. When before the season they were asking JB Bickerstaff what he thinks about the season, he goes, "Come February, come March, you're gonna turn the TV on, and you're gonna be able to recognize Detroit basketball." And what Detroit basketball represents is hard work, it's grit, it's grind, it's unity, it's working together, it's stuff like that. And I think that is our identity. And when it comes to Bickerstaff, just always seems to do the right thing. Always seems to say the right thing. Always has his players back. The last I'm already forgetting what happened in the last Isaiah Stewart ejection. Indiana. He closed out his press conference by saying, "Free beef stew." Like he just like he's got his freaking back, and like he has everybody's back. They asked what he thought about Cade against Atlanta. He said, "Yeah, he kicked ass. Not afraid to go after the refs," and I love that.
Not at
Stands
all.
for his teammates. Excuse me, stands for the players that are on his team. If a player says challenge, he says, "You know what? I trust you because I have your back and you have mine." I think what he's done in building a culture through all of his post-game press conferences and like the extreme professionalism, I think we were lacking somewhat last year. Kind of a joke of an organization last year, and now I think we're incredibly structurally sound. I don't really know the point I'm trying to make here with Coach Bickerstaff. Um, but what he says is always firing this team up. He's making these young guys believe in themselves and pushing them to another level. He's pushing Cade to be this MVP caliber player. Um, I just think that we can't talk enough about JB Bickerstaff, and for me, I don't see what other criteria there is for Coach of the Year and why he wouldn't win it. I get the Kenny Atkinson and the Mike Daniel shouts, but I just don't see how this award wouldn't go to JB Bickerstaff. What he's done for this culture, I think he's the head of it, and that's why we're talking about him now.
Absolutely, 100%. You talked about the professionalism. Connie, I kick it over to you to talk about JB, but I also want to throw in there that Tobias Harris has been an unsung hero during this stretch. So if you got anything to add on
You know,
Tobias as well as
you,
JB, run with
sorry,
it.
really
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I was at the Clippers game, man, the fans love Tobias. They love Tobias. They all go, Uncle
Yeah.
T. Like they just love the guy.
Yeah. And I'm one of those guys.
Give me a
Um,
Toby jersey.
I like it's crazy that like the circle that Tobias Harris's kind of career has taken. I'll talk a little bit about him, but I want to talk a little bit more about JB and why I think his coaching impact. Um, I just think everything the Pistons are doing. You talk about grit and grind. I don't see it as grit and grind. Grit and grind to me is those those Pistons game that end up 82-80 or something. The Pistons are a really good offense, and I almost call it like the show. Like we obviously do play really hard nosed stuff, but we are a Showtime team as well. Like you said, leading the team in leading the league in dunks, getting up absolutely just beautiful offensive plays with Cade and Malik going for 7 threes in 15 minutes. Uh, but
And to
what I
that
think
point,
that
Connie, the Pistons are third in the NBA over the last 7 games in offense.
yeah, so we do it all. But my big thing, what I think our identity is at this point is balance. Obviously, like the majority of the team is still driven by like Cade Cunningham high pick and rolls, but it doesn't ever feel like we're doing too much of one thing, which is something that we've definitely fell into in the past, even earlier this season, where we'd get a little too many Cade pick and rolls in a row without switching up, or too many Tobias Harris post ups without switching it up. Right now, I feel like we're getting a perfect sprinkling of everything. And when we need something, it happens. We do get that Tobias Harris posting a guy up and hitting a little mid range fadeaway. We get the Cade pick and rolls. We get the uh, Malik
Malik
Beasley.
Beasley off the curl. Yeah.
Oh, Malik Beasley off the curl. We get Sar Thompson on the break. Jalen Duren on the playmaker, getting his own stuff off the offensive rebound. We get so much variety and difference, and everything seems to now really be clicking into place where all the puzzle pieces are fitting together. And I don't think that you can say that without talking about JB Bickerstaff, who has just made this happen. And like again, like I said, made the guys be experts in their roles and have freedom in their constraints. I think it's working out so fantastic. And back to Tobias, who's part of that balance, who I sent you guys a 3-minute video the other day that I forgot who his name is. I compiled it of just Tobias Harris scoring on post ups. He's awesome, and it's such an interesting thing that his career has done. Where he came out of Orlando, he's a little underrated. Comes to Detroit, it really blows up. Starts getting talked about in an upper echelon sort of way as like one of the higher end forwards. Goes to the Clippers, balls out, goes to the Sixers, has a little bit of disappointment, and people are like almost entirely all the way out on him. And now we found him in this place where he is not the A1 forward that maybe some people thought he was, but he is such like I just love to watch him play. Like he never does too much. He never does too little. He is there, and if you're talking about, he plays his role in an absolutely perfect way. He defends hard. He has started hitting his shots. And something else, like he doesn't hold the ball, but I could say that really about anybody. Nobody on this Pistons team other than Cade Cunningham and Dennis Schroeder when he's making plays holds the ball. You realize that? It pings around. It flies around. I understand the case for giving the coach of the year to Kenny Atkinson because the Cavs have taken that step. But yeah, JB absolutely should be up there for the immense work that he's done on making this Pistons team not only just like competent, but like we're a game out of the fourth seed. The Pistons, like the way that they're playing, they keep playing like this, the Pistons will be hosting a first round series.
Yeah.
Like,
And this goes without saying, we have a 0% chance of landing the one pick in the draft, guys. 0.
yeah,
Fuck.
yeah, man.
If we beat Boston, you can book in a fourth seed for us. With Bickerstaff, I want to touch on one more thing with him. Before shouting out a couple more players. His halftime inspiration, team talks, whatever it is, whenever this group goes into the halftime locker room, I'm genuinely so confident about how we come out of the second half. And that's also like when we're going through a little rough patch and he calls a timeout, like I just expect great things out of those timeouts, out of those halftime periods. A real leader who commands respect. And I just
And this goes without saying, but the timings of his timeouts, I love them. Every single one of them, most of them,
absolutely.
right? Like when Monty Williams wouldn't call a timeout, I'd be like, okay, this kind of seems like a good time to call a timeout. I'm not a head coach, so I don't know. But
Also
Also,
when
not to
Monty
keep
did
saying,
when Monty did call the timeouts, nothing happened on the other side.
Oh, no.
He just called the timeout and then more of the same.
But when JB Bickerstaff calls a timeout, it's at the perfect time. If we have a lead, he calls it before we lose the lead so that we don't lose the lead. If we're trailing, he calls it so that he's like, okay, you guys are playing like doo-doo right now. We need to turn this around. And you know what? We turn it around. So it's just so great to see this team calling JB Bickerstaff, coaching these guys. I mean, we've talked about, even when he was hired, how he's into it with his players. I love how into it he is with these guys. And it's just such a great thing to see. Anything from either of you guys to add? Otherwise, we can talk about some of the other stars on this roster.
there was something of it I totally forgot. It ties into my next point though. I could kind of segue out to my next point. It kind of relates to Bickerstaff. And you'll see how it relates to Bickerstaff in just a second here. But I think one guy who yet again deserves his flowers is Isaiah Stewart. Still leading the league in opponent field goal percentage at the rim. Again, talk about guys buying into their roles. Beef Stew, I think, is the guy that is the epitome of buying into your role. I'm starting to see, like, now that we're getting more national media recognition, I saw like multiple times last night like posts about people being confused that Isaiah Stewart is only 23 years old and not in his 30s and the veteran enforcer of this Pistons team, which I think speaks for how he plays as well. Whenever he checks in, it's like that's another weapon we have, and it, like Connie said, how deep we are. Like JD does this, and this, but then when Isaiah Stewart comes, you get this, and this. Like it's such a versatile threat you get from Beef Stew. And one thing that this is how it ties into Coach Bickerstaff with me. I was looking, like, I think he only had 16, 17 minutes after the Clippers game. That's kind of where he hovers around that like 16 to 20 minute mark. With his capability of, like, his proven capability to at least somewhat knock down a 3-point shot, with the Pistons not really playing as much floor spacing as we perhaps would have thought and having success with it, I would love to see more lineups, especially closing out games with Isaiah Stewart technically at the 4 and playing with Jalen Duren. I think those two already have an elite bond as well. I think it's really doable, and I think that just again will provide another dimension to this team of having Beef Stew close out games. I think defensively you become so much more sound because it doesn't matter who Stewart is guarding. He can guard 1 through 5. He genuinely can. And I think you have the flexibility to do so. And I just think that Isaiah Stewart is too valuable not to be closing out games sometimes. And yeah, we're on a big streak. Don't get me wrong. We've been in a couple of good streaks. But I think that there's just potential for more when you're closing out games with Stu. Me and Gabe threw out the Al Horford comparison sometimes. Al slowing down a little bit, but in the past years, Al Horford always closed out games because he was just that important to have on the court. And I think Stewart
Over Duran?
presence. No, I'm saying with Jalen Duren. I think he's got to be out there. His wife commented on his last Instagram post, best defender in the league, and he said, "Damn right." And yeah, best defensive player in the league, and I would love to just see him have the opportunity to close out games next to Jalen Duren, which we saw obviously in the ugly parts of last season when we started Isaiah Stewart. But I really think that that's something we don't have to go away from, and I would just love to see the opportunity him have that opportunity in the future.
For sure. Connie, any thoughts on Stu? Otherwise, I have another
I
lineup that we saw that I want to pitch to you
Ooh,
guys.
and that Stu dunk, that tomahawk dunk. Oh
Yeah.
man, me in
Mm-hmm.
my Beef Stew City Edition jersey, we were getting wild at the game.
that was the first time that George Blas called a tomahawk dunk
He
and
didn't
not a
say
windmill.
windmill.
He
Didn't say
called it
windmill.
he called it a tomahawk. I was so surprised. I saw a stat that I can't fact check because I don't know how to look it up, so I'm just gonna assume it's true that opponents shoot 50% on Isaiah Stewart on dunks. So when someone tries to dunk around Isaiah Stewart, a shot that's usually made about 90% of the time, they shoot 50%, which fully backs up everything that I see of him just absolutely denying guys at the rim. Um, I mean, again, a guy that it just it just fits. He doesn't shoot threes anymore. Well, I don't know why, but I just everything
Yeah,
just
like why
comes
does Paul Reed have the green light
works.
but Stu doesn't? I'm just curious.
Well, because Paul Reed plays 3 minutes a game and
Okay,
has
that's
to get
fine. That's
it in. And Isaiah Stewart's on bigger and better things, but
yeah.
I mean, you can't really fault him for it because
Uh-uh.
he's playing really well.
He is
Um,
indeed.
who else do we need to shut out? I mean, we shut
I
out
want to
Malik
talk
Beasley
about Dennis
enough.
Schroeder if you guys are ready for that.
Oh yeah, no, go crazy.
Yeah, I love. I mean, Valley said it, and I wish I said it, but Valley said it that Dennis Schroeder is going to solidify us in the sixth seed. Valley, I hate to say it, but you were wrong. Schroeder's solidifying us as the top 5 seed in this conference, which is crazy to see. We also ran out a lineup of Cade, Schroeder, uh, Holland, Asar, and Duran, which if we can get out and run the way that we do, I love that lineup. Connie, I kick it over to you. Talk to me about what you've seen from Dennis Schroeder that you like, because he's hit some big shots when we've needed them since his arrival here. We're also undefeated since his arrival here. And also, talk to me about how you feel about that lineup of Cade, Dennis, Ron, Asar, and Duran.
I just like him. He brings in just a level of professionalism and competence as a backup point guard who's actually a point guard, which is something that we've been missing. Um, like really, that is what I see from him. Like, I don't like nothing really stands out that crazy. When he had one really nice game where he had 16 and 8. Nothing stands out that crazy other than he seems to be doing the right thing. He fits into the offense very nicely. And if we're talking about lineup, I really like that lineup because it does offer something that we've been missing with Ivy gone of just having a competent secondary ball handler outside of Cade Cunningham,
Mm-hmm.
which just makes it so much harder for teams to try to guard him.
And I
Um,
understand people are going to say that there's no shooting with Holland and Asar out there. But the thing I also love about that is there's not only a secondary playmaker out there with Cade, those are 5 guys who know how to make the right pass, which I
yeah,
like.
yeah. And just with Schroeder like being so good, it is bringing me back to how excited I am to have a healthy Ivy back on this team because you take those Schroeder minutes and you were like, if he's around, great. If he's not, you take those Schroeder minutes and you replace them with Ivy minutes. I think that's an upgrade. And I feel like there has been some discourse, like the Pistons got better without Ivy on the court, but I think it's the Pistons got better in spite of Ivy not being on the court. Like guys have just made some meaningful steps that have made this team better. And when this guy gets back in, I think you're seeing the role and the ways that Ivy can fit in because I think he is better than Schroeder. Um, can fit in and do his thing when he gets back and healthy on the court. But I have loved the Schroeder addition just as like an adult in the room with the second lineup, where again stuff got a little bit dicey sometimes when you're working with Marcus Sasser pick and rolls.
100%, 100%. Valley, your thoughts on Dennis and the lineup of Cade, Dennis, Asar, Holland, and Durham?
I'll start with the lineup. I love the lineup because it gives us the opportunity to really just run and play pretty fluid basketball. But Dennis Schroeder has been really a breath of fresh air because he can make Cade get a breather. He can let Cade get a breather. A lot of times we're seeing Schroeder really soon into I think almost his first or second game. He was already closing out games just because we need another ball handler. Get Cade in his position off the ball, save energy for Cade so he doesn't have to bring that ball up. And Schroeder's a really safe pair of hands, and he's the epitome of also like what a veteran point guard is. He knows his moves, he knows what works, he knows how to get his teammates going. Had hit Beasley for a huge corner three against the Clippers, and that friendship and that bond has been very evident since day one. They've known each other since Bees was in high school, and I think that you can see that on the court. But it's not just Bees; he does a great job of hitting his teammates. And we finally saw his signature move in the second half against the Clippers. I don't know if you saw it, but he goes to the wing. He pulls back out like everything is normal, and then he quickly turns and gets right to the rim. And he does it all the time, and he gets himself to the free throw line a ton, which I think has been huge in the clutch situations here, especially these last two games now against our last two games. Sure, did an excellent job of getting to the free throw line
Yeah,
versus
huge
Atlanta.
one against the Hawks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
took his old teammate Gorgeous Niang, who was on fire that game. Took him to the rim a couple times, had a huge and one. And talk about the Steph Curry lay versus the Clippers late in the game where he had the scoop that went up over the backboard for the score. And also just got to the foul line in the fourth quarter a lot, especially when we were kind of starting to slow down a little bit. And free throws are always a good place to go, and he just knows how to get there. Um, he's been exactly what we thought we would bring. It'd be nice if that 3-point shot comes in a little bit more. But something I'm not very concerned about. I think he's just been such a
Can
steady
I
pair of hands. Yeah, of course, kind of go right ahead.
can I add something to just that roster or that lineup? In that under no circumstances do I believe that that lineup would have worked under Monty Williams.
Mm-mm.
Because there was plenty of times last year where we had five guys on the court with Cade that weren't shooters, but had some playmaking ability. And it's like a SAR out there and other guys. It's like, oh, these guys can play make and they might know in the right spots, but man, the spacing, it's impossible. You can't play like this. And it's like, oh, turns out you can't. Like, I mean, it's obviously not like a full-time lineup and it's something that we pull out situationally, but like it just the difference in just knowing how to make an offense work with the pieces that you have, it's truly astonishing when you have a guy that wants to be here and wants to coach here and isn't just here to, pull in a massive check and
Yeah.
and run
Go.
Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy. It's crazy how much I love JB Bickerstaff, who
Yeah.
I gotta say, admittedly, I underrated as a coach before he got to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all knew that he would be a decent coach, but the way he has turned this roster around has been something I don't think very few, if any, really could foresee. Uh, I know this is like we've mentioned, this is the first 7-game win streak in a decade for the Pistons. You guys got anything else to add? Because I don't care if we run long on time, because I don't know in our lifetimes if we're ever going to see another set. I'm sure we will, but it took 10 years the last time. Hopefully, it's not that long next time. But we got a 7-game win streak going. Potential to make it 8 tonight against Boston. What else you guys got to add on this team?
Um, I would love to just really quick just have like a quick 30 seconds to a minute. Malik Beasley, love you. What a shooter. Fantastic addition. We said it a bajillion times. Um, Ron Holland plays his role, plays like a dog, plays hard as hell. That dunk he had, which should have been an N1 against Atlanta, awesome. Simone Fontecchio, who's questionable to play tonight. Not been shooting too well.
Dislocated finger, by the way, which is crazy.
It's dislocated.
That's what the injury report said yesterday.
Horrible, nasty. Either way, plays his role. Like there's a reason he's on this team. There's a reason even he wasn't a guy that was sacrificing the deadline because this team needs to stay together. When we do the Italian hand gesture, like it brings this team together. Tim Hardaway Jr., professional veteran, great charge taker, knows how to shoot the ball, knows how to help lead this team. Fantastic addition. Uncle T, same exact thing. B-ball Paul just has a certain vibe to him. Helps this team out. Whenever we need him, when there's foul trouble, he comes in and he does pretty good.
Oops.
Marcus Sasser, when he gets garbage minutes, shoots. Um, I just love this team up and down. You can even go to our assistant coaches. Like it's so good that we kept Jared Jack, I think, because he was here throughout the struggle. He was here for this 14-game win streak. We saw some familiarity with the coaching staff, which I think is important. Just up and down this entire roster, up and down this entire coaching staff. Yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. We have a long ways to go. However, everyone deserves to pat themselves on the back and really be proud of themselves for what they've done to this organization. Us as Pistons fans, I think we've been crying out for times like this forever, and we're finally here. And I think everybody deserves their recognition for it. Um, every single person up and down that roster, there's a reason they're here. There's a role they contribute to this team, and it's a beautiful balance and it's a beautiful thing right now.
It is. It is. And I believe I posed this question earlier on the pod, but I just want to come back to it. If you guys could face either the Knicks or the Pacers in the playoffs, who you choose?
The Knicks. I think we'd beat the Knicks in five.
Nick's Loki.
Knicks. Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair.
See,
I
Pacers.
just
Pacers would be
I just
fun
don't want to
because
see the Bucks.
we'd get the Pacers in game 7, then we'd win in 7, which is pretty cool. Rather than winning in like 5 games. So, it's like whatever one you prefer. But I do not want the Bucks. I absolutely do not want
Don't let me see the Bucks. I'm scared of the
Oh
Bucks.
no. Yeah. This is gonna be
so-
what 2018-19 all over again. No, thank
Yeah.
you.
So the Pistons are on 7 straight right now. They got 2 big tests. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes here. We got
Not
2
at
big
all.
tests coming up with the Celtics and the Nuggets. Next 4 games, we got Celtics, Nuggets, Nets, Jazz. What are you guys feeling? Record.
I'm saying 2-2.
It's got to be at least 2 because you realistically, I'm sorry, Killian, you got to take down Brooklyn, and realistically, you got to win the one after that. I will be in the building for the Brooklyn Nets game. I'm
Of course you will.
excited to see my boy Killian Hayes back in action. I hope Cade Cunningham drops 50 on him. However, it'll be good to see him. Could you repeat the team after Brooklyn?
Utah.
We've got the Utah Jazz.
I think Utah and Brooklyn have to be wins. I
They
think
have
that's
to
where
be.
we're at right now. That has to be 33-34. If you can get one, if you can just get one between Boston and Denver, really sets you apart, really puts you in a great spot, I think, to push even for a higher seed. Look at last night when the Magic lost and the Bucks lost as well. Tonight against the Boston Celtics, they're on a 6-game win streak themselves. If we were to win this game, massive statement. I'm going 3-1, guys. We're beating one of these teams, and it's gonna be amazing.
Honey?
Amit?
I said 2-2, but I need to stay optimistic.
Can I readjust?
What's that?
I'm just gonna remake my prediction. We're going 4-0. We're hitting a 10 games.
God damn it,
Oh.
man. I wanted to say that. I've been a negative Nancy in the past, but I don't see the point in doing that anymore. And I think I think the Celtics are the biggest challenge. The Nuggets are hot right now, but I think we have the guys to beat them. I want to say 4-0. We're going
I think
11
we're gonna
straight.
be. I think JB is gonna fire these guys up with the other JB, what Jaylen Brown said over the offseason. Now they can play anybody against the Pistons. I think we're gonna use it as fuel, and I think we're gonna go crazy.
Over under of one altercation between Isaiah Stewart / Ron Holland and Jaylen Brown tonight.
Over 3
Under.
for sure.
Under.
I believe.
We're going with cooler heads prevail tonight. Any other notes before we get out of here? Because again, the Pistons, I'm gonna say it because I don't know how often I'm gonna be able to say it ever again. The Pistons are on a 7-game win streak. Any other notes? All right, guys. Well, that concludes this episode of the Buff Sound Podcast. We are so grateful if you guys are still listening. We love talking Pistons basketball. I'm standing in the garage when it's 30 degrees outside just to talk about this sizzling hot Pistons team. That's actually why it's so toasty. Okay? The team is so hot. But with that being said, please follow us on all social media platforms. If you're on YouTube, it is right on the screen. If you're not, well, just go to our YouTube page and you will find all of our social media platforms there. But until next time, Throw the Buffs on Detroit because the future is bright and we are sizzling.
Hit the land.